Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into Jira. You've been really digging into this tool, and it seems like you're trying to see if it can, help you manage your own projects. So get ready, because we're going to break down what Jira is, why it's popular, and if it's the right tool for you.
It really has become like the tool in project management. What gets me is how it went from like just a bug tracker to this crazy versatile platform, almost like those multi-tools everyone has, suddenly useful for everything.
Okay, now I'm really curious. But let's start basic. What is Jira exactly? It's got to be more than just a digital to-do list, right?
Oh, for sure. Jira, it's made by a company called Atlassian. It's all about, organizing those crazy projects we all have, big or small. It's like that command center where everyone's on the same page about what's getting done, who's doing what, and by when.
And you're saying it's changed a lot.
Totally. It started as a bug tracker, mostly for software people, but that doesn't mean you got to be a tech whiz to use it now. Now it's everywhere. Marketing teams, product launches, you name it.
We did see a ton of features in what you sent over. Issue tracking, agile boards, customizable workflows. It's a lot. What would you say is the standout feature of Jira?
Workflows for sure. The way you can customize them. It's honestly, WHY Jira is so big now. Think about it. Everyone wants flexibility these days, right? So instead of some rigid system, Jira is like, hey, build a workflow that actually matches how your team works.
So like tailoring a suit to fit you perfectly.
Exactly. You literally design how each task, they call them issues in Jira, by the way, how each one goes from start to finish. You need approvals along the way, build it in. Want to automate stuff to save time? Jira does that. This changes everything because you're not fighting the tool, you're making it work for you.
Okay, that's really neat. I can see why that'd be a relief compared to clunky old software. But what about the lingo? I'll be honest. Seeing sprints and backlogs makes me feel lost.
You're not alone. Jira has its own language, yeah. But once you get the logic, it's simple. Honestly, that's another reason it's taken off. It clicks with how a lot of teams work now, especially with agile stuff like Scrum, which is huge in software and beyond.
So how does Jira actually support agile? And what do those terms really mean when you're using it?
Okay, so picture this. You've got this big project, right? And with Agile, you don't tackle it all at once. You break it down into these smaller, bite-sized chunks of work. And those are your sprints. They usually last a week or two, something like that.
Like mini goals on the way to the big one, right?
Exactly. And that's where that backlog comes in. Think of it as like your master to-do list for the whole project, with everything that needs to get done, prioritized and all. And when you're planning a sprint, the team picks like the top priority stuff from that backlog and focuses on getting those done within that sprint.
So Jira helps visualize this whole thing. So you're not just like staring at a huge list, freaking out.
You got it. That's where those agile boards come in. Imagine like a digital whiteboard, right? You see all the tasks for that sprint. Who's working on what? The status of each task. It's a real-time snapshot of your whole project.
Okay, so it's like the visual command center for your agile projects, basically.
Exactly. And then it goes even further with things like burn down charts. Think of it like a graph. And it shows how much work is left in the sprint. Helps the team see if they're on track to hit their goals.
Yeah.
And that's huge, right? Because you can spot potential roadblocks early on.
Oh, that's actually really helpful. Like a heads up that you need to adjust course. I can see why teams love that. But let's talk about the real world stuff for a sec. We get how Jira keeps everyone organized, but how does that actually translate into like tangible benefits for the team, for the organization,
This is where it gets really cool. Remember how we were talking about those customizable workflows? Well, imagine being able to automate things like approvals. Let's say you're on a marketing team and you're waiting on a design to get finalized, right? Instead of a million emails back and forth, you build that approval right into Jira. The designer knows what they need to do, the approver gets automatically notified, boom, the whole thing just flows.
So not just faster, but you're avoiding all those annoying holdups that can totally kill a project.
Precisely. And here's the thing, Jira tracks all of this. You've got a full record of everything. Huge when teams are spread out, working across different time zones, all that.
And what about reporting? We mentioned the burn down charts, but what other insights can teams get from all that Jira data?
So this is where Jira goes from being helpful to like mission critical almost. Because it's tracking everything, you can actually start to see patterns. Like maybe certain types of tasks always take way longer than you think they should. That might tell you, hey, we need better training here, or we need more resources. Or you might even be able to predict delays before they happen just by looking at the data from past projects.
Wow, that's like next level project management. You're not reacting, you're actually getting ahead of the game.
Exactly. And that's a big difference between Jira and like those simply tools out there. It's not just about getting stuff done. It's about using data to get better at what you do, making smarter decisions overall.
Okay, so we've established Jira's pretty awesome, but we've also said it can be a bit much, especially for smaller teams or like simpler projects. What would you say to someone who's like, this sounds great, but is it overkill for me?
That's the thing, right? It's like you don't always need a giant truck if you just need to run a small errand. Yeah. Good analogy. I always tell people the best tool is the one that just, works for you, how your team operates. If you're a small team, pretty simple projects, something like Trello might be a better fit. It's also Atlassian, by the way, but it's more visual, uses those cards. Super user-friendly.
We did see Trello mentioned as an alternative, along with Asana, Monday.com, Azure DevOps. Is it just preference or do these excel in different ways?
Oh, yeah. They each have their own thing. Asana, for example, really strong on the collaboration side. So if your team's all about that smooth teamwork communication, Asana might be worth a look.
What about Monday.com? That one always seems to have like really sleek visuals.
Right. They're big on design, that's for sure. Making the interface nice to look at, customizable too. So yeah, that's important to your team. Monday.com's got that going for it.
And finally, Azure DevOps. Just the name makes me think software development teams, right?
You nailed it. It's Microsoft's whole suite of tools, so it's really plugged into that whole world. So if your team's all about Microsoft already, Azure DevOps just makes sense, especially for CI/CD stuff, which if you're doing a lot of software releases, that's essential.
So it really boils down to finding the tool that matches how you already work, what's important to you. No one right answer.
Couldn't agree more. But hey, even if you go a different route, knowing about Jira like this is still a win.
How so?
Because now you get it. The basics of how to think about projects, agile, sprints, all those terms, that stuff's everywhere now, not just software. It's transferable knowledge no matter what tool you end up with.
That's a great point. It's bigger than just one tool.
True.
So for our listener who's been with us on this Jira journey, what's the key takeaway here?
Honestly, don't be intimidated. Jira's powerful, sure, but it's not like magic. It's a tool. And the important thing is why you knowing what you need. Explore those options. Figure out what helps you do your absolute best work.
Fantastic advice. And hey, maybe this even sparks some curiosity about like the whole project management landscape.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there.
Definitely. Exciting time to be in the field, that's for sure.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Big thanks to our expert for walking us through all things Jira and more.
Happy to do it. Always love a good deep dive.
And to you, listener, thanks for joining us here on The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time for another venture into, well, whatever we're diving into next.